We'll be using goats to graze invasives off of a riparian zone next to a creek, so that we can remove the majority of the leafy foliage that are on the invasive plants and allow us to easily get in and cut and treat stumps of invasive plants. And these invasive plants are things such as autumn olive, bush honeysuckle, Asian honeysuckle, burning bush, and things of that category that are very common in the Appalachian region and come along with large-scale disturbance, that we want to remove those invasives and clear it with the goats. This particular part of the project is a practical component because when cutting out invasive species and clearing invasive species, it's a lot of hard manual labor work where you're cutting, removing the leafy matter and everything out of your way, treating the stump, but all that stuff takes up area and it's all green. It's very hard to see what you're working on, how you're clearing land. So what you can do is graze with the goats, which allows your goats to grow and benefit, gain body mass, which in an agricultural system is the most important thing. We want to raise animals and put weight on them, but at the same time you're clearing away the nuisance of having to fight the foliage while you clear the invasive. And with repetitive introduction of goats on the same site, you could even repress an invasive to the point where natives can overtake them. But in this case, we are going to graze the invasives, remove the main stump, treat the stump through a stump treatment, which allows us to use a minimal amount of herbicide and keep our creek safe while we do that, and then effectively kill off the invasive species. The alternative option would be to use something like a foliar spray, where you have to spray a very large quantity of herbicide on a plant to try to eradicate it, and it may leak into our watershed and get into the stream that we're working by, and we don't want that. So we're going to use a stump treatment in conjunction with goat grazing to reduce the amount of herbicide necessary and reduce the amount of physical labor necessary while removing the invasives. By doing this project, we're going to be able to educate students, give real life skills on how to manage land, how to use equipment, how to work with animals to students in departments such as biology and agriculture.
Because managing the animals means we pay attention to their behavior, we set up environments that work for them, but then we must ultimately and continuously evaluate how they perform in that environment. They tend to favor dry conditions, so if we are not careful, the hooves can become infected, they can suffer with hoof rot, and therefore it becomes necessary to trim their feet periodically. And sometimes we may need to treat with this hoof rot material, chemical here, to help them overcome foot rot problems. And examination, of course, involves looking at him, palpating various regions, various parts of his body, examining him, and then determining whether there are conditions that we can treat, or alternatively, would we need to remove him from the breeding herd. I said we look at general health, FMACHA, and body condition score. So in terms of FMACHA scoring, pretty much like body condition scoring, is done on a scale of 1 to 5. What we're trying to do is determine the amount of blood or let me say it another way, the extent to which parasites have infected the bark. The greater the amount of parasites, the worse would be the tomato score.
What you got there?
I would say like 2.
You would say 2?
You got a score on him on the condition?
He looks great.
We are taking up electric fencing to keep goats in an area of a forest so that they can eat the invasives out of that area so that the native plants can thrive.
Left front, it's the same deal. Pretty good. You cut that side flare off. You're alright. Alright, stay still. We're teaching. You're an educator. That's right. There you go. Today is September 14th and we just put the netting in on the project area. So we're going to show you the perimeter. So this is an old roadbed. Just to the right of us is the lake, Owsley Reservoir. And this is an area that used to be an old road. It's been left to its own devices and is now full of invasives such as autumn olive, a little bit of privet, honeysuckle, and multiflora rose. Here's an example of the autumn olive in Berea right now. Very prolific throughout this area. Here's another invasive. This is called winter creeper. See, it's waxy leaf. It's very invasive all throughout the region here in Kentucky and very difficult to get rid of, so we're excited to see what the goats are going to do to that while they're in here. We have Premier 1 fencing set up, 5 rolls worth of netting along the perimeter inside of the unit. And as you can see, very heavy foliage. Lots of vegetation, which would be good for the goats and would make it extremely difficult for clearing out and selecting the invasives to treat. So we'll put the goats through here. We're going to let them clear out the understory, make it more accessible to some of the invasives that are buried deep in this thick greenery. And after we get done clearing this side, prepping to plant a small fruit forest. We'll move the netting over here to clear out the back of the piece of property. It's day 2 out here on our plot in the project. We're checking on all the animals. It's been raining, so everybody's all wet and look like they've been dragged through the mud. This area is more of a riparian zone than we originally anticipated. Here we can see we got water running through the site, right down the middle, amongst the greenery. But the goats are still hard at work out here, grazing away. With this new information about how wet the site actually gets, the management plan is probably going to shift a little. There's a possibility that we'll go from planting a permaculture food forest to planting a riparian area tree instead. Maybe sycamores. Might plant a big grove of sycamore to help the integrity of this low riparian zone.
Alright, so right here we're on the fence line of where our goats were on this side, and this is what it looked like before. As you can see, you know, you can't get up in here and cut this, but over here we have a multiflora rose bush, invasive bush, and here you can get right in here and, you know, we'd go grab the saw and cut this, and that's much easier than if we were over here. You know, you get torn to shreds. This is part 2 of what we've been doing out here with the goats, trying to treat invasives. First we came up and set up a perimeter of our fence line, half an acre or so of area. Set up the temporary fence, the mesh, around the highest density area of invasives we can find. Goats are really becoming popular to treat invasives because it's greener than just spraying the woods down with pesticides, and benefits the animals and it benefits the land. Here we have a area of autumn olive that you can see is cleared pretty nicely below the brush, and we can come in and cut the autumn olive and then stump treat each individual autumn olive.
What's the alternative to stump treatment?
Spraying the whole entire woods, and then which would run right off into the creek right beside us, and that's what you don't want. Alright, as you can see, we have an autumn olive here. First thing you notice is that we're actually in here beside the tree. Before, it was so dense, the vegetation was so dense, it was just too hard to work. You couldn't get in here and cut this tree. But the goats came in here and they cleared all this brush and made it really easy to work.
Today is November 30th. 2021, and we're wrapping up the last stage of the goat portion of our project, and I have some students here that are going to explain what we've done throughout the course of this portion of the project and then what's coming next.
I'm Zendine. I'm a junior agriculture major at Berea College. After the goats came through here in our project area, we came through and we cut out all the invasives we could find, multiflora rose, autumn olive, privet, and a lot of winter creeper that we got. The goats actually ate a lot of that. After that, we stump treated. To limit the amount of herbicide we use, we stump treated each individual stump. And yeah, that's pretty much what we've done so far.
So you're happy with what has taken place so far?
Absolutely. The goats did a really good job, and it made it really easy for us to get in there and clean everything out by hand.
So my name's Abby Phelps. I am a senior agriculture major at Berea College. And so after we did what Zen just talked about, we came in and removed all the dead, diseased, and dying trees. And then we took a bush hog that you see behind me and cut all the underbrush out to open everything up and kind of get what we couldn't get by hand in preparation for our next part, which is tree planting.
My name's Chase Lawson. I'm a sophomore forestry major at the University of Kentucky. The next step in this process is to plant native species like white oak, persimmon, and sycamore in this creek area right here because they're native trees and they grow well in this area.
And we're just going to do a quick walk around and look at where we worked and what we've worked in and see the difference. We'll see the difference from where we started. So what we're walking now is the same perimeter that we had the fence up for the goats. You can see that we've cleared out the underbrush. You see this blue dye sticking off of some of these stumps where we've treated the invasive species, and a nice clear understory buffering up to the creek that we're gonna come in and plant sometime in January.